I'm super excited to introduce Kenneth Kuan, although I did read on Instagram that whenever anyone full names him, he feels like he's in trouble, so we'll go with Ken. Ken is the founder of Delugs. It's a local watch strap company, and one that I'm personally super fascinated by. He's been growing the business for the last 7 years or so, and his journey is absolutely incredible. For me, watch straps is super niche as a thing to focus on for one business, but Ken has put in so much love, so much hard work to make it work, and so we're thrilled to have him with us today. And also a huge round of applause for Ken because he actually just got back to Singapore at 12:30 a.m. He got home at 2 a.m. last night. I don't know if that means that he is hanging by a thread. But we're very thrilled to have him with us today anyway. So please put your hands together for Ken.
Thank you so much, girl. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. Firstly, I think it's amazing to see so many people here on a Friday morning, just listening to me speak and to connect with everyone else. This is my second time here. I think the energy is amazing, and I'm sure that's why many people come back as well. So happy to share more a little bit more about what we do, about my we'll call it life story, but our story so far in the past few years, and some lessons I guess I picked up over the years. So let's start. I'm here with my wife actually. So Pei, she's also running the business with me. Okay, thread. I think this topic was quite appropriate for me as a business because of what I do. I'll get more into that. But I think just a quick overview of what I do. I think so you know my background a little bit. You know where I'm speaking from. So we started Delugs as a watch strap and accessories company back in 2018. We only went full-time, I would say, last year. Today, we sell mostly internationally. Singapore is about 15% of our market. It's a very niche business. And I would say it's a business that we accidentally went into. We didn't start this intentionally. But over the years, I think, as things grew, moved on, and we realized that we could make a business out of this, and something that's really our passion. So I think we were running Delugs for 4 years as a side gig, side business. So I was running it from like 8 p.m. until 12 midnight, oftentimes going much later than that. And mid of last year, we took the plunge and both of us went full-time into this last year. So sharing my story, hopefully you'll find something interesting. So most people might know us actually for our news with Ed Sheeran. So earlier this year, when he came to Singapore, we actually gave him a watch strap, more than one watch strap, but that actually made the news, I think, because of how that whole story happened. So I'll be going to that later on, so stay tuned for that. Beyond Delugs itself, I'm a relatively new father, I guess. My kid is 2 years old, so very different life. So we had a kid and then we went full-time, so there's a lot of change as well in a short period of time. And actually my full-time job, I was an army regular, so I was doing that for 6 years after my NS, and I only left last year. Yeah. So I think the first definition of thread to me is the very literal one, right? I mean, it's a string, strand of fiber used in stitching, and I think this really relates back to the topic of, I think, working in your passion. For me, that's something that I'm very excited to share about, because I want more people to experience what it's like really to be working in passion. I think most of us here, I would guess, are doing something similar. Yeah, because we're here on Friday night, I'd say. Delugs' journey started, I would say, back in our last year of university. We were studying in the US. I wanted to pick up a hobby before I started working full time, because I kind of guessed that after working full time, you don't really have time for much other stuff, and you just be sucked into that working life. So when I was with my wife, my girlfriend back then, we said, let's pick up a hobby together. So we were thinking of what could we do that both of us could do together. I wanted to do something a bit crafty, a bit in the art side, but I didn't want it. I couldn't draw. I'm terrible at drawing. I'm terrible at painting. She's good at that. I wanted to do something a bit more manly. So I was like, okay, let's do leather crafting. You know, it's like men love leather. I was into leather shoes at the time. So I was like, okay, let's try this. Back then, I learned it off YouTube. We learned it off YouTube. We picked up by watching videos, went on forums. I remember scrolling through Reddit quite a bit. And I made my first item. I don't even know if you can call it an item. It looks terrible, but it's actually a key fob. This was probably in September, October 2016. I don't know why I made this picture back then. It's almost like I knew that this would transpire into business for me in future. But the text there is the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So this was my single step. This was my first project, I guess. Then subsequently, I went quite into it. Started making, the next step was like a card holder. So I was crafting these. So these are entirely handcrafted. So you cut the leather with a knife. Unlike the normal stitching, where you use a machine to do it, you hand stitch leather basically. So you have to punch the holes where the stitching will then go through, and then your thread crosses on both sides. Yeah, so it's quite fascinating, it's quite interesting. Even today I'm still very excited by leather crafting. Then moving on to slightly more complicated projects. This was a bifold wallet that I made 1 to 2 months after I started. Then I was like, okay, this is like, okay, let's amp it up a little bit, let's make something bigger. So I was like, why don't let's make a handbag and see where we go. It was way too ambitious of a project for someone who started too early on. I spent too long doing this, and it looks nice from here, but as a maker, when you look up close, you notice the flaws and all that. But I'm looking back, I'm very proud of this project. And then at the time, I had a watch that my wife bought for me. So I was like, okay, let's do a watch strap. Turns out the smaller the item, the harder it is to make, because every millimeter of imprecision reflects so greatly. If you make a bag, you can hide like whether it's 1 mm different doesn't make a difference. But on a strap, like even the smallest of measurements, smallest of difference makes a huge difference. So this was a mistake. It's way too difficult to jump in at the start. And then I was like, okay, my dad was coming to visit us in the US. I wanted to make him a gift. So I was like, let's try something a bit more crazy. And I decided to make him a briefcase. So yeah, this was I would say at the time it was like, okay, I had this idea of how it turned out. I was inspired by some photos I saw of people crafting briefcases. And I thought I could do it. Well, I did it, but it was a lot of sacrifice. This is me rushing out the project right before he came, sitting on a chair and just stitching all night. But yeah, I mean, it turned out quite nice. He still has it under his desk. He doesn't use it anymore these days. He's retired. But every time I go back home, I'll see it, and it reminds me of the past. Yeah. After this, I think things went a little bit crazy. From 2016 to 2019, I think I continued crafting, and it's really because of this passion for crafting, I would say. I really enjoyed the process of making, creating. The idea that you can take raw materials that people would normally discard. I mean, leather is a byproduct of the meat industry, and turn it into something that people might actually use. And people actually buy them, right? I would post photos of my projects on Reddit where I was learning leather crafting. And sometimes I'll get people messaging me and asking me, hey, where did you buy this? So I didn't buy this, I made it. And they would message me, oh, could you make me something like this? So that's really where things started. And I think that 100 projects over the 4 years, it taught me definitely about leather crafting, but beyond that, it taught me a lot more about how it's like to run a business, I guess, how it's like to market, how do you reach out to customers, how do you set up Instagram account, how do you market on that. I think more importantly, it taught me about resilience and discipline, and the importance of passion, I would say, because you can't do this for 4 years on the side. So I had a full-time job in my military career, and then I was going home and doing this. I think that's not sustainable if you don't have the passion for it. So I was really enjoying all the different projects I did. I never really felt like work. Something that I always go back to is that when I go to work, sometimes I see people going in, like, that feeling of like Monday blues and you're dreading going to work. Like, I feel like that is such a wasted opportunity in a sense. And for me, it's like, it's not that I didn't like my work in my full-time job, but I think I enjoyed parts of it, but I didn't have the same passion for what I was doing here. And it's almost like, I would watch the time go by from my 9 to 5, and then from like 5 to 9 or even beyond, there's an excitement, and I don't go to sleep because I just want to keep going and doing and doing. I'm sure all of us have experienced something like this. And for me, I think something that I would like to do is really to introduce more people to working your passion, because I feel that it's so rewarding, and we spend so much of our time working, and I feel that it's a waste if you don't enjoy what you do. And yeah, I would say today I'm very lucky. The business has obviously evolved way beyond those early days. We have a much bigger team now doing the crafting. I no longer craft, which I kind of miss sometimes. But I'm quite fortunate that even what I'm doing today, the things I'm doing is still within my passions. I would say upon reflection is really about creating. I enjoy that process of creation, whether it's a physical product or a business or a mission or whatnot. I enjoy watches, so I'm in the watch industry business. I get to, and this is the luxury watches where pieces go for 6 figures and above. And it's quite fascinating to see something so small and how much work and craftsmanship goes into that. And I think above all is really the people within that I meet on a daily basis, all of you here, the customers that I meet. Because we're an international business, I have the fortune of traveling overseas, meeting our customers, and I think that's something very exciting because this is me taking a selfie with a group of people in Kuwait. I would never have gone to Kuwait if not for the business, so I think it's quite exciting to see this business taking me to places as well. Yeah. Life is a marathon. I think passion is your fuel. For me, that's how I view things. Just to keep going, you need to find the meaning to keep going. I would say, or at least I do. So that's the first theme. The second definition of thread, I guess, is an online conversation, like literally a forum and all that. And to me, this brings back one of the lessons that I hold dearly in the business. Something that I always try to remind myself is the idea of talking less and listening more. So this becomes a bit more specific to business and e-commerce, but I think hopefully you'll find something that you can pick away from this. So as a relatively successful, I would say, business, sometimes people will approach me and ask me how some of these questions, right? Like how do you know what to do? How do you find your customers? What should you focus on? Like where do you market? How do you do it? What new products do you make? And I wish I had the answers to all of this, but the reality is that often I don't. I'm still learning as I go. But for me, there's one way to find out all of these answers, and that's really to ask your customers. Because they have all of the feedback out there, they know exactly what they want, and all you have to do is really ask. But beyond ask, to listen to what they say. We do a lot of events where we talk to people and we interact with them, and yes, it's to build a brand, I guess, but for me, it's really a way to get feedback on how we can do things better. I find that feedback is one of the most important, but undervalued things, in a sense. Or like sometimes it's hard to take feedback, so we don't hear it as often. But I think that really allows us to improve and move forward. So 2 examples. This is Tissot PRX. I'm not sure how many of you know it. It's a relatively entry-level watch. It's under $1,000. We started making straps for the PRX. We've sold over 6,000 straps to date. We were the first ones to make rubber straps for this watch, even before the brand themselves. So today the brand does do rubber straps for this watch, but we were very proud to say that we were the first ones to introduce it. And this was actually our first foray into rubber straps. So I started with leather straps because that's how my early beginnings were. But quickly we realized that we were a strap business and we couldn't just do one material. So with this, we expanded into rubber straps. So by and large, this was a very successful product, but we almost didn't make it because I almost ignored this watch simply because of the price point. Our products start from, I would say, about 145 Sing dollars. So it's not cheap. It's a luxury product. And for me, this watch, the price point was a bit lower than what our normal target customers would have. Until a customer prompted me on Instagram and said, he was replying to a product that we had launched, and he said, "Oh, now hopefully something for the Tissot PRX." Haha. And I replied him, "Probably not, to be honest." Haha. I immediately dismissed him because to me it's like the price point is so different. But then upon reflection, I was like, okay, maybe I should look into this a little bit more. So I dug in and did some research. I talked to customers again. I realized that there was quite a strong following for this and people were looking for alternatives. So that prompted us to start developing straps for the PRX, and over time it became a successful product line for us. So yeah, one example of how listening to our customers gave us the answers in what products we should make, what direction we should go towards, and I was so close to not taking that advice. Second example, so I remember not waking up, but I was late at night one day and someone prompted me and was like, "Hey, do you know there's this nightmare going on the forums?" I was like, "Shit, what's happening?" So someone posted on a watch forum, ridiculous policy from Delugs straps. I was like, so basically, I'll summarize this. We had a sales policy of how we sell the straps. The customer didn't agree with it, and he posted this to share with others about our policy. And our customer service representative also gave the wrong information that was conflicting with our website. So this didn't look good. By the time I was notified of this, I think the thread was like 2 pages deep.
Wow.
So there were a lot of people responding. I was like, oh my god, what a nightmare. This was about 24 hours after it was posted. But I took the time to read through all the replies and realize what people were talking about, see if there's any sense in what they were saying. And after that, what I realized is that yes, there's some value to the customer's feedback and their perspective. So what I actually did was to, instead of seeing it as a PR disaster, I reframed it as really a customer feedback exercise, although in a very non-ideal way. So we actually changed our sales policy because of these feedback, because I realized that it was valid. You know, it's a perspective that we didn't consider initially when we started selling the straps. So I was like, no harm changing people. That's what people want. And what it also made me realize the gap in our customer service, their knowledge, how they present the information to the customers. And I think at the end of it, this guy actually changed the thread title, and people saw the response. I think they were more happy that I came in to respond and I was receptive to the feedback that he gave. Like, update, great responses from Kenneth Kuan. So I think it showcased that we were receptive to the feedback, and hopefully we gained more fans than we did detractors after this incident. I think we did, at least for those who followed the entire story or journey. So I would say sometimes we can really learn something from all customers, not just the ones that are good or better. It's really a matter of how we take in the feedback. I think people can give it, but how we receive it, how we perceive it is something that's totally different. Yeah, I think especially these days with social media, we are a direct-to-consumer business. I think it's so easy to talk to customers, and it's something that it's like a secret power that we all have today compared to any business 50 years ago. With Instagram, it's not just a marketing channel. I think it's a communication platform where you can hear from your customers, you can receive the feedback, and you can educate as well, I guess. I think most importantly is to be authentic and receptive to the feedback, and not just say like, oh yes, thank you very much, then you don't actually act on it. I think the hardest part is to really be open to receiving the feedback, not just from a business perspective, I guess, but in general. Many times we feel very defensive when someone attacks us, right? But if we can step back a little bit and hear what they're trying to say, pick out the nuggets from it, and then see how we can improve. But I think listening is not enough. You have to really absorb it and then distill the wisdom from what people are saying. I put a picture of a minesweeper here. Not sure how many have played this before, but you basically try to open up the map without clicking on the mines. The safest way to play this is to just calculate where the mines are based on the information you know. So you just open the squares that are safe, right? So like the number represents how many mines are nearby. To me, customer feedback is a way to click on an empty space where you can potentially open up a lot more data, give you a lot more information, but actually have a way to see behind what's behind the tile before you click it. It's almost like you ask someone, you kind of know a little bit about what they're saying, and then it gives you the confidence to go there and potentially open a much bigger space, I guess. Not sure if the analogy makes sense. It made sense to me when I was working on this slide. Yeah. Last story, if you will. I think the last definition of thread is a connected storyline, as well alluded to. For me, this goes back to a quote, connecting the dots. I'm sure many of you would have heard, or if you haven't, you should listen to this talk by Steve Jobs. I'll read it here. You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. So I think he gave this speech at one of the university commencement. And it's something that I've always kept in mind. It's so powerful, I think, this message. And as I look back, I really believe this to be true. You don't really know where your path takes you. Which brings me to this, right? This story with Ed Sheeran. So we earlier this year when Ed Sheeran came to Singapore, he's a watch guy, and we wanted to do something for him. So how it started is in October last year, one of the watch publications actually published a podcast episode, or an episode with him. It's an hour long, where he sits down with John Mayer and he starts talking about his watches, what he likes about them, and a lot of watch enthusiasts or collectors were like drawn by this, just to see his collection, I guess. What I was surprised by is him talking about straps in this episode. So he was talking about how he wears his watches when he performs, and it's a very like energetic, sweaty environment. He was like, oh, I wish, I actually commissioned Patek to make a rubber line strap. So this is the first time I heard any celebrity talk about straps in that way. You know, most celebrities just wear a watch because of the status or whatnot, you know, because they have the means to buy it. But he actually thinks about the strap that he puts on the watch. So I was like, okay, this guy is like, he thinks about straps, that's very different. And then 1 week after that, I think it was announced that he's going to perform in Singapore. So I was like, shit, we should do something to, I mean, we're a strap business, he needs rubber line straps, or he needs rubber straps. We have that, can we do something? So I remember telling my team that we should do something. Then as most things go, nothing is done. Until the week before he's supposed to come. Then I was like, guys, he's coming in 1 week. It's like, what are we doing, you know? Like, we don't have much time to make it happen. So we hastily put together a video. We had no way of reaching to Ed Sheeran. So we could do what we do best, which was reach out to our community. We made a video with the team, basically trying to crowdsource like a linked way to him, seeing if anyone knows him, like tagging him, and hopefully he notices. What ended up happening was that one of our customers, or someone who knew of the brand, she was actually his salesperson for watches. And she knew of our brand from the early days. She was like, oh, I know that you guys are legit, you're authentic, you know, I'm happy to help link you up with his team. And she said, I normally don't do favors for Ed, but I know you guys aren't just pulling a marketing stunt in a sense. So she put us in touch. This was 1 week before. For the entire week, after the guy was like, yes, we'll get in touch closer to the date. I didn't hear anything until the day of. Like the night before, I still remember telling Pei and the rest of the team, I don't think it's happening, because even though we've linked up with his team, but they didn't say anything. Maybe they're just being courteous about it. So that morning, I texted him one more time. I said, hey, I know you're busy, but can we make this happen? And he actually replied shortly after, just got to Singapore, you know, let me send you some details. So we didn't plan anything at all for this to happen. We scrambled that day. It was right in the midst of Chinese New Year, so we had to make plans to cancel our dinners and all that, make plans for the kid so that someone could take care of him while we went for the concert. But then, I mean, obviously it all worked out, and we managed to meet him, not just once but twice. We met him that day of the concert, but then the next day he had a private concert. We met him there again for a more intimate session, and I helped him to size the strap for his watch. And that was his birthday as well, so it couldn't have worked out in a better way, I would say. When I first pitched the idea to the team, all of them were like, I remember asking even Paige, she was like, do you think it's going to happen? I was like, no, I don't think so. I couldn't say that because I was the one who came up with the idea, but secretly I also knew that like, okay, this is not going to happen. After the fact, many people who I've talked to, they were like, how did you make that happen? Because if you were to try to get an endorsement like this, it would cost a lot and it would be quite impossible. But I think organically we managed to get this going. And this actually led to quite a lot of downstream things that we didn't expect. So we got coverage on the mainstream news outlets. The brand awareness shot through the roof. I remember right after that weekend, people came into our store just like, hey, are you guys the Ed Sheeran brand? So, oh, I recognize you from Straits Times. Like, wow, how's Ed Sheeran? You know, people are doing that. And it's immediately we went from like being a very, very niche brand into a not so niche brand, like a little bit more people knew of us. And that really helped. Pei was one of the Forbes 30 under 30. I was slightly overage, but I think that probably was us. Sad. And I think we got invited to many events, networked with many other fellow entrepreneurs because of this. Probably invited to this event because of this incident as well. And for me, the lesson is really that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? You never know if something is going to work out, but if you don't try, you'll never even have a chance to realize it. And sometimes people say, oh, you're lucky, you know, wow, this is such good luck. But to me, I think that's part of the story. I think luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. I didn't come up with this quote, I found a quote on luck online, and I think this relates very well. You have to put in the work to be lucky and be in a position where you can take advantage of the luck in a sense. And looking even further back, you know, when I started, when we picked up Lettercraft, it was never to build a business like this. It was never to meet Ed Sheeran. We picked it up because we wanted to do something that we enjoy. And I think looking back, you know, as I connect the dots backwards, definitely that was where things started. But we couldn't have imagined it at the time. And I think sometimes you just have to say yes to opportunities that come your way without quite knowing where it leads. I mean, even being here speaking to all of you, I'm not a natural public speaker, but to me it's like, why not just give it a shot? I'm not sure where this will take me. I'm not sure who I'll meet. but just give it a try. And especially if you have nothing to lose, I have nothing to lose by coming here and presenting. If anything, it hopefully makes me a better speaker. It forces me to prepare the slides, and it took me down memory lane, I guess, as I reviewed all the past projects that I did. So overall, it's a very nice experience, and it's very nice to meet everyone here. So thank you so much for hearing me speak for the past, I don't know how long, quite a while. But yeah, feel free to connect. If you want to talk about entrepreneurship, e-commerce, marketing, operations, watches, and that crafting, feel free to approach me. Anything else, I can't confirm if I'll be able to engage you properly. But thank you, everyone.